Adrian Cole stood frozen in the doorway of his ex-wife's attorney's office, his 5-year-old daughter Maya gripping his hand like a lifeline, when the words hit him like a freight train. Your wife didn't die in an accident. She chose to disappear. The manila folder slid across the mahogany desk contained bank statements, falsified death certificates, and a one-way ticket to Barcelona dated 3 years ago. Everything Adrian had mourned, every sleepless night he'd spent trying to hold himself together for Maya, every moment he'd believed himself a widower. It had all been a lie. And now, standing in this coastal town he'd fled to for a fresh start, watching a dark-haired woman with haunted eyes pull her own daughter close on the beach below, he had no idea that the truth about his past was nothing compared to the storm that was about to consume his future. If you want to see how Adrian survives what comes next, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The moving truck pulled away from the curb, leaving tire marks in the sand that had blown across the cracked asphalt. Adrian stood in the driveway of the small beach house, watching the vehicle disappear around the bend, and felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the one that never quite went away. Maya tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, can I go look at the beach?" He glanced down at her. 5 years old, dark curls that reminded him too much of someone he was trying to forget, eyes that saw too much for a kid her age. She'd been quiet during the move, hadn't asked about leaving their old house, hadn't cried when they packed up her room. Sometimes he wondered if she understood more than she let on. "Not by yourself," he said, his voice rougher than he intended. "Let me get the last few boxes inside, then we'll go together." Maya's face fell, but she didn't argue. She never argued anymore. That was the part that killed him. The way she'd learned to swallow her disappointment, to make herself small and easy. No 5-year-old should know how to do that. Adrian hauled the final box through the front door, nearly tripping over the scattered remains of their life in cardboard and packing tape. The house smelled like salt and old wood. Nothing like the vanilla candles that used to burn in their old place. Nothing like her. He set the box down harder than necessary. The attorney's words still echoed in his skull, had been echoing for 2 weeks straight. She chose to disappear. Not an accident, not a tragedy. A choice. Rebecca had looked at their life, at him, at Maya, and decided it wasn't enough, had decided they weren't enough. "Daddy?" Maya was standing in the doorway, backlit by the afternoon sun. "You said we could go." "Yeah." He rubbed his face, tried to shake off the weight pressing down on his shoulders. "Yeah, sweetheart. Let's go." The beach was a 5-minute walk down a sandy path that cut between dunes covered in seagrass. The sound of waves grew louder with each step, and Adrian felt something in his chest loosen just slightly. That's why he'd chosen this place, Coral Bay, a town small enough that you could disappear into it, quiet enough that maybe he could hear himself think again. Maya ran ahead when the ocean came into view, her sandals kicking up sand. Adrian's heart jumped into his throat, that automatic panic that seized him every time she moved out of arm's reach. But she stopped at the waterline, letting the foam wash over her toes, and he forced himself to breathe. That's when he saw the woman. She was sitting on a piece of driftwood about 20 yards down the beach, watching a girl who looked maybe a year or two older than Maya build an elaborate sandcastle. The woman's dark hair whipped in the wind, and even from a distance, Adrian could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she sat perfectly still, like she was waiting for something to go wrong. Maya noticed the other girl and glanced back at Adrian, a question in her eyes. "Go ahead," he said, before he could second-guess it. "Just stay where I can see you." She took off running, and within minutes she and the other girl were talking, their voices carried away by the wind. Adrian walked closer, keeping his distance, but trying to look less like a stalker. The woman on the driftwood noticed him and stiffened. Up close, she was younger than he'd first thought. Late 20s, maybe 30. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that seemed to catalog everything about him in a single glance. She wore jeans and a faded blue sweatshirt, nothing fancy, but she carried herself like someone who'd learned to take up space carefully. "Yours?" she asked, nodding toward Maya. "Yeah." Adrian shoved his hands in his pockets. "We just moved in, down the road." "The yellow house?" "That's the one." She didn't offer anything else, just turned her attention back to the girls. Adrian should have walked away. He wasn't here to make friends, wasn't here to start conversations with strangers. But something about the way she sat there, so completely alone despite being surrounded by open beach, made him stay. "I'm Adrian," he said. She looked at him again, and for a second he thought she might not answer. Then, "Lena, your daughter." "Chloe. She's 7. The silence stretched out between them, not quite comfortable but not hostile either. Adrian watched Maya and Chloe work together on the sandcastle, their laughter cutting through the sound of the waves. It was the first time he'd heard Maya laugh in weeks. "She doesn't usually warm up to people that fast," Lena said quietly. "Maya either." Lena's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Maybe they know something we don't." Adrian wanted to ask what she meant by that, but before he could, Chloe came running over, Maya trailing behind her. "Mom, can Maya come over for dinner?" Chloe's eyes were bright, hopeful. "Please, we're building a whole kingdom and we need more time." Lena's expression shifted, something guarded sliding into place. "Chloe, they just moved here. I'm sure they have a lot to do." "We don't," Maya said, looking up at Adrian. "Right, Daddy? We don't have anything to do." Adrian felt the weight of 3 pairs of eyes on him. Lena's were the most intense, like she was trying to send him a message he couldn't quite read. "Say no. Give me an out." But Maya was looking at him with something he hadn't seen in her face in months. Excitement. Real, genuine excitement. "If it's not too much trouble," he heard himself say. Lena's jaw tightened. For a second, Adrian thought she might refuse outright. Then Chloe grabbed her hand, bouncing on her toes, and something in Lena's face softened. 6 o'clock, she said. "The White House with the blue shutters, 3 doors down from yours. We'll be there." The girls cheered and ran back to their sandcastle. Lena stood, brushing sand off her jeans, and Adrian noticed the way she held herself, shoulders back, chin up, like she was bracing for impact. "Thanks," he said. She met his eyes. And for just a moment, the guardedness slipped. What he saw underneath looked a lot like his own reflection. Someone who'd been hit too many times and was still trying to figure out how to stop flinching. "Don't thank me yet," she said. "You haven't tasted my cooking." Then she walked away, calling for Chloe, and Adrian was left standing on the beach, wondering what the hell he'd just agreed to. At 5:30, Adrian stood in front of his bathroom mirror trying to decide if changing his shirt 3 times made him pathetic. It was just dinner, a courtesy dinner, because their kids had hit it off. Nothing more. Maya appeared in the doorway wearing her favorite yellow dress, the one she usually saved for special occasions. "You look nice," Adrian said. "You too." She paused. "Are you nervous?" "No, why would I be nervous? You keep fixing your hair." Adrian dropped his hand from his head. "I'm not nervous. Come on, let's go." The walk to Lena's house took less than 3 minutes. The White House with blue shutters sat back from the road, surrounded by a garden that looked like it had been meticulously maintained. Flowers Adrian couldn't name lined the path to the front door. He rang the bell. Chloe answered, already talking before the door was fully open. "Maya, come see my room. I have a dollhouse that's taller than me." The girls disappeared up the stairs, leaving Adrian standing in the entryway. The house was small but immaculate. Everything in its place, nothing extra. It reminded him of a hotel room, like someone lived here but didn't actually live here. They didn't waste any time. Lena emerged from what he assumed was the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She'd changed into a simple black sweater and the same jeans from earlier. No makeup, hair pulled back. She looked tired. "I can call her back down if—" "It's fine. Dinner's almost ready anyway." She gestured toward the kitchen. "You can help if you want. Or just stand there looking uncomfortable. Either way." Adrian followed her into the kitchen, which was brighter than the rest of the house. White cabinets, pale blue walls, a window over the sink that looked out onto the beach. Something was simmering on the stove that smelled incredible. "What are we having?" he asked. "Chicken piccata. Unless you're vegetarian, in which case I have pasta and panic." He laughed, surprised. "Chicken's great." Lena handed him a knife and a cutting board. "Salad duty, lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers. Try not to lose a finger." They worked in silence for a while. The only sounds, the sizzle of the pan and the distant shrieks of laughter from upstairs. Adrian found it oddly calming, this quiet shared task with a stranger who somehow didn't feel like a stranger. "How long have you lived here?" he asked, slicing a tomato. 3 years? Like it? It's quiet. She stirred the pan, not looking at him. That's what I needed. Adrian heard the weight in those words, the things she wasn't saying. He recognized it because he'd said the same thing to himself when he'd chosen Coral Bay. Quiet. Safe. Somewhere to breathe. What about you? Lena asked. What brought you here? The question he'd been dreading. Adrian focused on the cucumber in front of him, keeping his hands busy. Fresh start. My wife died 3 years ago. The lie tasted bitter in his mouth, but it was easier than the truth. Easier than explaining that his wife had faked her death, that she'd abandoned them, that he'd only found out 2 weeks ago and was still trying to figure out what to do with that information. Lena's hand stilled on the spoon. I'm sorry. Thanks. He scraped the cucumber slices into the bowl. It's been hard, but Maya's resilient. Kids are. Are they? Lena's voice was quiet. Or do they just get better at hiding it? Adrian looked up, met her eyes across the kitchen. There was understanding there, the kind that came from experience, not sympathy. She knew. Maybe not the details, but she knew what it felt like to watch a child learn to swallow their pain. Before he could respond, footsteps thundered down the stairs, and both girls burst into the kitchen. Is it ready yet? Chloe asked. We're starving. 5 minutes, Lena said, her voice shifting back to something lighter. Go wash your hands. They disappeared again, and the moment broke. Lena turned back to the stove, and Adrian finished the salad, and neither of them mentioned the thing that had just passed between them. Dinner was easier than Adrian had expected. The girls dominated the conversation, talking over each other about school and dolls and a movie they both loved. Lena was quieter, watching more than participating, but when she did speak, there was a dry humor to her comments that made Adrian smile despite himself. Maya says you're a carpenter, Lena said, passing him the salad bowl. General contractor. Mostly renovation work. He helped himself to more lettuce. What about you? I work from home, freelance graphic design. That's convenient with Chloe. Something flickered across Lena's face, too fast for Adrian to read. Yeah, convenient. The girls asked to be excused and ran back upstairs. Adrian started gathering plates, but Lena waved him off. You're a guest. You cooked. Least I can do is help clean up. She didn't argue, just handed him a dish towel. They worked side by side at the sink, the domesticity of it almost jarring. It had been a long time since Adrian had done something this normal, this simple, with another adult who wasn't a therapist or a lawyer or someone who looked at him with pity. Thank you, he said, for tonight. Maya really needed this. Lena rinsed a plate, her hands moving efficiently through the soapy water. Chloe did too. Is it just you and her? The question was out before he could stop it. Too personal, too soon. But Lena didn't flinch. Yeah, her father's not in the picture. By choice? His and mine. She handed him the plate to dry. Some people shouldn't be parents. Adrian thought about Rebecca, about the woman he'd married who'd turned out to be someone he'd never really known, about the choice she'd made to walk away from their daughter without a second thought. Yeah, he said quietly. Some people shouldn't. Lena glanced at him, something shifting in her expression. You get it. It wasn't a question. Adrian nodded anyway. They finished the dishes in silence, and when it was time to leave, Maya complained but didn't put up a real fight. Chloe and Lena walked them to the door. Can Maya come over again? Chloe asked, looking up at her mother with hopeful eyes. Lena hesitated. Adrian watched her internal debate play out across her face, the desire to keep her distance warring with whatever she saw in her daughter's expression. We'll see, she said finally. On the walk home, Maya chattered about Chloe's dollhouse, about the games they'd played, about how Chloe had a nightlight shaped like a star. Adrian only half listened. He was thinking about the way Lena had looked at him in the kitchen, like she'd seen something in him that she recognized, like they were both survivors of something they couldn't name out loud. Back at the yellow house, Adrian tucked Maya into bed and sat on the edge of her mattress while she fell asleep. When he was sure she was out, he went downstairs and pulled the manila folder from where he'd hidden it in his desk drawer. Rebecca's face stared up at him from a photograph, the one the private investigator had included. She was sitting at a cafe table in Barcelona, laughing at something off camera, her hair longer than it had been when she'd left. She looked happy. Free. Adrian closed the folder and shoved it back in the drawer. He'd come to Coral Bay to figure out what to do with the truth, whether to tell Maya, whether to track Rebecca down and demand answers, whether to just let it all go and try to move forward. But tonight, for the first time since he'd found out, he hadn't thought about Rebecca at all. He'd thought about dark eyes and guarded smiles and the way Lena's shoulders had relaxed, just slightly, when the girls had laughed. He went to bed and dreamed of waves crashing against rocks, endless and relentless and somehow comforting. The next morning, Adrian woke to Maya jumping on his bed. "Daddy, Chloe's outside!" He groaned, squinting at the clock. 7:30. "What?" "She's outside with her mom. They're going to the farmer's market and they want to know if we want to come." Adrian dragged himself out of bed, pulling on a sweatshirt as he stumbled to the front door. Sure enough, Lena was standing on his porch, looking like she'd already been up for hours. Chloe was doing cartwheels in the yard. "Morning," Lena said, her expression unreadable. "Sorry if we woke you." "It's fine." Adrian ran a hand through his hair, suddenly aware that he probably looked like hell. "Farmer's market?" "Every Saturday. We usually go early to beat the crowds. Chloe thought Maya might want to come." She paused. "But if you have other plans?" "We don't," Maya said, appearing at Adrian's elbow. "Please, Daddy, please." He looked at Lena, trying to read her face. Was this her idea or Chloe's? Did she actually want them to come? Or was she just being polite? 20 minutes, he said. "Let me get dressed and feed Maya something." "We'll wait in the car." 19 minutes later, they were piled into Lena's old sedan, the girls in the back chattering like they'd known each other for years instead of a day. Adrian sat in the passenger seat, trying not to notice how small the space felt, how aware he was of Lena's hands on the steering wheel, the faint scent of her shampoo. The farmer's market was set up in the parking lot of an old church, rows of white tents filled with produce and flowers and homemade jam. Lena seemed to know everyone, waving at vendors, stopping to chat with other parents. Adrian hung back, letting Maya and Chloe lead the way, watching Lena interact with the world around her. She was careful. That was the word that kept coming to mind. Careful with her words, careful with her smiles, careful to keep people at just the right distance. But with Chloe, the carefulness disappeared. When she looked at her daughter, everything in her face softened, became unguarded. "You coming?" Lena was looking back at him, one eyebrow raised. The girls had stopped at a tent selling fresh strawberries. Adrian caught up. "Sorry, spaced out. Thinking about unpacking?" "Something like that." They bought strawberries and fresh bread and cheese that cost more than Adrian thought cheese should cost. Lena insisted on paying, waving off his attempts to contribute. "You can get the next one," she said, then seemed to catch herself. "If there is a next one. I mean, you probably have things to do. I'm not trying to monopolize your weekends." "Lena," she looked at him. "It's fine. This is nice." Something in her expression eased. "Yeah, it is." They walked through the market, the girls running ahead, and Adrian felt that same sense of calm he'd experienced in her kitchen the night before. Like maybe, just maybe, he could build something here that didn't hurt. "So what do you do for fun in Coral Bay?" he asked. Lena snorted. "Fun? I have a 7-year-old. I don't remember what fun is." "Come on, there's got to be something." She considered. "There's a decent bookstore on Main Street. Coffee shop that doesn't completely suck. The beach, obviously." She glanced at him. "Not exactly thrilling." "Sounds perfect to me. Low standards? Readjusted priorities." Lena smiled, a real one this time, not the careful half version she usually gave. "Yeah, I get that." They ended up at the coffee shop she'd mentioned, a small place called The Roasted Bean that smelled like espresso and cinnamon. The girls got hot chocolate and sat at a table by the window, while Adrian and Lena stood at the counter waiting for their orders. "Regular?" the barista asked Lena, already reaching for a cup. "Please. And whatever he's having." "Black coffee," Adrian said. The barista, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes, looked between them with barely concealed interest. "Haven't seen you before." "Just moved here," Adrian said. "Adrian Cole." "Susan?" She poured his coffee. "Welcome to Coral Bay. You picked a good guide." She nodded toward Lena. "This one knows everyone worth knowing." Lena's expression tightened. "Susan, I'm just saying, nice to see you out with someone who's not 7 years old. Susan handed over the cups with a knowing smile. Enjoy. They took their coffee to the table. Maya and Chloe were deep in conversation about whether mermaids were real. Adrian caught Lena's eye, saw the embarrassment there. She means well, Lena said quietly. Small town? You have no idea. Adrian took a sip of his coffee, considering his next words carefully. So people are going to talk about us being seen together. Probably. Lena wrapped her hands around her mug. Does that bother you? Should it? She looked at him, something unreadable in her eyes. I don't know yet. The cryptic response hung between them. Adrian wanted to push, to ask what she meant, but the girls chose that moment to demand attention, and the conversation shifted to mermaids and whether they had scales or skin. They spent another hour at the coffee shop before Lena checked her watch and declared they needed to head back. In the car, the girls fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted from their early morning. Adrian and Lena drove in comfortable silence, the radio playing something soft and forgettable. Thanks for today, Adrian said as they pulled into his driveway. Chloe had fun. So did Maya. He paused. So did I. Lena's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Adrian, I'm not expecting anything, he said quickly. I just mean it's nice. Having someone to talk to who doesn't look at me like I'm broken. Maybe you are broken. Her voice was gentle. Maybe we both are. Maybe that's okay. He looked at her, at the exhaustion in her face, the weight she carried that he was only beginning to understand. Yeah, maybe it is. Maya stirred in the back seat, and Adrian took it as his cue to go. He got out, unbuckled his daughter, and carried her sleeping form toward the house. At the door, he turned back. Lena was still sitting in the car, watching him with an expression he couldn't read. He lifted a hand in a wave. She returned it, then drove away. Inside, Adrian laid Maya down on her bed and stood in his living room surrounded by unpacked boxes, thinking about broken things and whether they could be fixed or if they just learned to function around the cracks. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he didn't recognize. This is Lena, in case you need anything, or if Maya wants to see Chloe again. Adrian stared at the message for a long time before responding, Thanks. I'm sure she will. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, good. That night, after Maya was asleep, Adrian sat on his back porch listening to the waves and thinking about the way Lena had smiled at the farmer's market, the way she'd said, maybe we both are, like it was a confession and a comfort all at once. He thought about Rebecca, about the lies and the betrayal, and the 3 years he'd spent mourning someone who was drinking coffee in Barcelona without a care in the world. He thought about the anger that lived in his chest, the way it had been eating him alive from the inside. And then he thought about dark eyes and careful smiles, and a woman who seemed to understand that broken didn't mean worthless. He pulled out his phone and looked at Lena's message again. Before he could overthink it, he typed, Coffee? Tomorrow? Just us? The response came faster than he expected. Okay. Adrian set down his phone and stared out at the dark ocean, wondering what the hell he was doing and why. For the first time in 3 years, it felt like maybe he was doing something right. The coffee shop was nearly empty when Adrian arrived the next morning. He'd left Maya with a neighbor, Mrs. Pacheco, a grandmother type, who'd introduced herself within hours of their arrival and seemed genuinely thrilled to babysit. Lena was already there, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups in front of her. I ordered for you, she said as he sat down. Hope that's okay. Presumptuous. You drank it black yesterday. Didn't seem like a complicated order. Adrian took a sip. It was good, strong and hot and exactly what he needed. Fair enough. They sat in silence for a moment, both of them seeming to realize simultaneously that this was different from yesterday. No kids as a buffer, no farmer's market to wander through, just the 2 of them and whatever conversation they were about to have. Lena broke first. I'm not good at this. At what? This. Talking to people, making friends, whatever this is. She traced the rim of her cup with 1 finger. I usually keep to myself. Then why did you invite us to dinner? I didn't. Chloe did. But you said yes. Lena looked up, met his eyes. Yeah, I did. Why? She was quiet for a long time, and Adrian watched her think through her answer, weighing what to say and what to keep hidden. He recognized the calculation because he did it himself every time someone asked about Rebecca. Because Chloe looked happy, Lena said finally. Really happy, not just pretend happy. And I can't remember the last time I saw that. The honesty in her voice hit Adrian square in the chest. He thought about Maya's laugh on the beach, the way she'd smiled at dinner, the cartwheels in the yard. I get that, he said quietly. Your turn. Lena leaned back in her chair. Why did you say yes? Same reason. Maya's been through hell. If spending time with Chloe makes her smile, I'm not going to say no. Well, even if it means spending time with Chloe's weird, antisocial mom. You're not weird. You don't know that yet. Adrian smiled despite himself. Give me time, I'll find out. Something shifted in Lena's expression. Surprise, maybe, or something close to it. Like she hadn't expected him to commit to time, to the idea of getting to know her. She looked down at her coffee, and when she spoke again, her voice was softer. I moved here 3 years ago, started over. New name, new life, new everything. Adrian went very still. New name? Lena Hart isn't the name I was born with. She said it matter-of-factly, like she was commenting on the weather. But it's the name I chose, so it's the one that counts. The implications of that statement settled over Adrian like a weight. New name. Starting over. The careful way she held herself, the guardedness in her eyes. He thought she was just private, maybe a little damaged like he was. But this was something else. You don't have to tell me, he said. I know. But you want to? Lena looked at him, really looked at him, and Adrian saw something raw and uncertain in her face. I don't know, maybe, eventually. She paused. You're the first person in 3 years I've even considered telling. That's a lot of trust. Or a lot of stupidity. I prefer trust. Lena laughed, short and surprised. You're kind of stubborn, aren't you? Persistent. There's a difference. They fell into easier conversation after that. Surface things, safe things. Lena told him about Coral Bay, about the best places to buy groceries and where to avoid the tourists in summer. Adrian talked about his work, about the house he was renovating, about his plans to set up a workshop in the garage. They didn't talk about the past, didn't mention Rebecca or whoever Lena had been before she became Lena Hart. But it was there, underneath everything, the weight of what they weren't saying. When Adrian's phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Pacheco saying Maya was asking for him, he stood reluctantly. I should go. Yeah. Lena stood too, gathering her things. Thanks for the coffee, or, for letting me buy you coffee. Next time I'm paying. Who says there'll be a next time? I do. Lena smiled, and this time it reached her eyes. Persistent. Told you. They walked out together, and on the sidewalk, Lena hesitated before getting in her car. Adrian? Yeah? Thanks for not asking a million questions. Everyone's got things they don't want to talk about. She nodded, something like relief crossing her face. See you around. Adrian watched her drive away, then headed back to Mrs. Pacheco's house to collect Maya. His daughter was covered in flour, helping the older woman make cookies, and she barely looked up when he arrived. Can I stay a little longer? She asked, her eyes bright. We're making chocolate chip. Mrs. Pacheco laughed. She's no trouble at all. Come back in an hour. Adrian found himself back at the yellow house with an hour to kill and nothing to do. He pulled out the manila folder again, spread the contents across the kitchen table. Bank statements, flight records, the photo of Rebecca in Barcelona, a letter from the private investigator detailing everything he'd found. Your wife withdrew $50,000 from your joint account 2 weeks before her supposed death. She purchased a one-way ticket to Spain. She's been living there under her maiden name for the past 3 years. I can continue investigating if you want more information. Adrian had paid the man to stop. He didn't want more information. He didn't want to know who Rebecca was with, what her life looked like now, whether she ever thought about the daughter she'd left behind. The knowing would destroy him, and he'd worked too hard to stay functional for Maya. But sitting here in this new house, in this new town, with the memory of Lena's confession still echoing in his head, Adrian wondered if maybe he'd been going about this all wrong. Maybe the not knowing was worse than the knowing. Maybe the lie he was living, telling people Rebecca had died, letting Maya believe her mother was gone instead of just gone. Maybe that was the thing that would destroy them both in the end. His phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Cole? This is Janet Reeves. I'm calling from Coral Bay Elementary. Adrian's stomach dropped. Is Maya okay? She's fine. This is actually about enrollment. We have her registration on file, but we're missing some documentation. Her birth certificate and her previous school records. I can bring those by tomorrow. That would be great. Also, I noticed on the emergency contact form you only listed yourself. Is there another parent we should have on file? Adrian's throat tightened. No, it's just me. I see. And the mother? Deceased. The lie came automatically now, smooth and practiced. Janet made a sympathetic noise. I'm so sorry. We'll make a note in her file. If Maya needs any additional support, our counselor is available. After he hung up, Adrian stared at the phone in his hand. The lie was getting easier every time he told it. That should have bothered him more than it did. He gathered up the papers, shoved them back in the folder, and locked it in his desk drawer. Then he went to pick up Maya, who was sugar high and chattering about cookie recipes and how Mrs. Pacheco had promised to teach her to knit. That night, after Maya was asleep, Adrian's phone buzzed with a text from Lena. Chloe wants to know if Maya can come to the beach tomorrow after school, if you're comfortable with that. He typed back, Yeah, I'll walk her over. You don't have to. I can pick her up. I know, but I want to. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, okay. Adrian set down his phone and realized he was smiling. He couldn't remember the last time a text message had made him smile. The next few weeks fell into an easy rhythm. Maya started school and came home every day with stories about Chloe and their teacher in the playground. Adrian threw himself into setting up his workshop, taking on small renovation jobs around town, building a life that felt almost normal. And Lena was there, woven through all of it in ways that felt both natural and terrifying. They had coffee most mornings after dropping the girls at school. They took the kids to the beach on weekends. Lena came over one evening to help Adrian paint Maya's room, and they ended up ordering pizza and letting the girls have a movie marathon while they finished the trim work. You're good at this, Lena said, watching him cut in around the window. Years of practice. I meant with Maya, being a single parent. You make it look easy. Adrian set down his brush. It's not easy. I'm just good at faking it. Aren't we all? They painted in silence for a while, the sounds of the movie drifting up from downstairs. Adrian kept stealing glances at Lena, at the careful way she worked, the small frown of concentration on her face. She'd pulled her hair back in a messy bun, and there was a streak of pale yellow paint on her cheek. You've got paint, he said, gesturing to his own face. Lena swiped at her cheek, missing entirely. Did I get it? Not even close. She tried again, making it worse. Adrian laughed and grabbed a rag, stepping closer. Here, let me. He reached out, intending to hand her the rag, but somehow ended up wiping the paint off himself. His thumb brushed against her cheek, and Lena went very still. They were standing close. Too close. Adrian could see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes, could feel the warmth of her breath. Sorry, he said, not moving. It's okay. Neither of them stepped back. The moment stretched out, heavy with possibility, and Adrian felt something shift in his chest. This thing between them, whatever it wasn't just friendship. It hadn't been just friendship for a while now. Adrian, Lena's voice was barely a whisper. Mom, Chloe's voice carried up the stairs. The movie's over. Can we have ice cream? The spell broke. Lena stepped back, putting distance between them, and Adrian felt the loss of it like a physical thing. Yeah, baby, Lena called down. I'll be right there. She looked at Adrian one more time, something uncertain in her eyes, then headed downstairs. Adrian stood in the half-painted room, rag still in his hand, trying to get his heart rate under control. This was dangerous. He knew it was dangerous. He'd come to Coral Bay to figure out his life, to deal with the mess Rebecca had left behind, to be a good father to Maya. Getting tangled up with someone else, especially someone as complicated as Lena clearly was, that wasn't part of the plan. But when he went downstairs and found Lena in his kitchen, scooping ice cream for the girls, laughing at something Chloe said, he couldn't bring himself to care about the plan. Later, after Lena and Chloe had gone home, Maya climbed into Adrian's lap on the couch. I like Lena, she said. Yeah, me too. She's pretty. Adrian smoothed his daughter's hair. She is. Do you think she likes you? The question caught him off guard. I don't know, sweetheart. Why? Maya shrugged. She smiles at you a lot. And she laughs at your jokes, even when they're not funny. My jokes are hilarious. Daddy, they're terrible. Adrian tickled her until she squealed. Okay, they're terrible. But don't tell Lena that. I think you should ask her on a date. Maya, see, Mrs. Pacheco says you need someone to take care of you because you're hopeless. Mrs. Pacheco says a lot of things. Maya twisted around to look at him, her expression suddenly serious. I don't remember Mom very much anymore. Is that bad? The words hit Adrian like a punch to the gut. He pulled Maya closer, trying to figure out what to say. How much truth could a 5-year-old handle? No, baby, it's not bad. You were really little when she died. The lie again, automatic and awful. It's okay to not remember. But you remember her. Yeah, I do. Do you miss her? Adrian thought about Rebecca in Barcelona, about the life she'd chosen without them. Did he miss her? Or did he just miss the idea of her, the version of her he'd thought he'd married? Sometimes, he said, which felt like the most honest answer he could give. Maya nodded and settled back against his chest. I think if Mom could see us now, she'd want you to be happy. The innocence of it nearly broke him. Adrian pressed a kiss to the top of Maya's head and blinked back the sudden burn in his eyes. I am happy, he said. I've got you. But you could be happier, with Lena. Adrian didn't know what to say to that, so he just held his daughter until she fell asleep in his arms. When he carried her upstairs and tucked her in, he stood in the doorway of her yellow room for a long time, watching her sleep. She was right. He could be happier. The thought terrified him. That night, he texted Lena. Are you awake? The response came immediately. Unfortunately, Chloe had a nightmare, just got her back to sleep. Maya asked me if I like you. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, what did you tell her? The truth. Which is? Adrian stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. He could deflect, make a joke, keep things light and safe. But he was tired of lying, tired of pretending, tired of carrying around the weight of everything he couldn't say. He typed, that I do. For a long moment, nothing. Then, that's complicated. I know, I'm complicated. I know that too. Another pause. Then, and you're okay with that? Adrian thought about the manila folder in his desk, about the lie he told every time someone asked about Rebecca, about the mess of his own life that he was still trying to untangle. We're all complicated, he wrote. Doesn't mean we have to be alone. The response took longer this time. When it came, it was just 3 words. Coffee, tomorrow? Adrian smiled at the screen. It's a date. Don't call it that. Why not? Because I'll panic and cancel. Then it's just coffee. With a friend. Okay, I can do that. Good. See you tomorrow, friend. Lena sent back a middle finger emoji, and Adrian laughed out loud in his empty bedroom. He fell asleep that night thinking about paint-streaked cheeks and almost moments, and the way Lena's guard came down when she laughed. The next morning, she was already at their usual table when he arrived. But something was different. She looked tense, her shoulders tight, her eyes shadowed. You okay? Adrian asked, sitting down. I need to tell you something. The seriousness in her tone sent alarm bells ringing in Adrian's head. Okay. Lena took a breath, her hands wrapped around her coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Last night, after we texted, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what you said, about being complicated, about not having to be alone. Lena, let me finish, please. She met his eyes, and Adrian saw something fragile and fierce in her expression. I told you I moved here 3 years ago, that I changed my name. What I didn't tell you is why. Adrian waited, his heart pounding. I was married, Lena said quietly, to someone powerful, someone dangerous. I thought I loved him, and then I thought I could fix him. And by the time I realized I couldn't, I was trapped. He controlled everything, where I went, who I talked to, how I spent money. When I got pregnant with Chloe, I thought maybe having a baby would change things, but it just made them worse. She paused, and Adrian saw her hands shaking. He reached across the table, covered them with his own. She didn't pull away. He never hit me, she continued. Never had to. He had other ways of making me understand who was in charge. And when I finally decided to leave, when I took Chloe and ran, he made it very clear that he would find me, that I would never be free. But you got away. I disappeared, changed my name, changed my life. A friend helped me. Someone who knew how to make people vanish. As far as anyone knows, the woman I used to be doesn't exist anymore. Adrian felt the weight of what she was telling him, the trust it took to share this. Does he know where you are? No, at least I don't think so. But he's looking. He's always looking. Lena pulled her hands back, wrapped them around her coffee again. That's why I keep to myself. Why I don't let people get close. Because if he finds me, anyone close to me becomes leverage. Lena, I'm telling you this because you deserve to know what you're getting into. If you want to walk away, I understand. I won't blame you, but I can't. I can't keep pretending that this is just casual, that you're just a friend, because you're not. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Adrian's mind was racing, trying to process everything she'd just told him. Lena was running from someone, living under a false name, constantly looking over her shoulder. It was insane. It was dangerous. It was exactly the kind of complication he should run from. But when he looked at her, at the fear and hope warring in her eyes, at the way she was bracing herself for rejection, all he could think was that she'd trusted him enough to tell the truth. And that had to mean something. I'm not walking away, he said. Lena blinked. What? I'm not walking away. Whatever this is, I'm in. Adrian, you don't understand. I understand that you're scared. I understand that your past is dangerous. But I also understand that you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. You got yourself and your daughter out of a bad situation. You built a new life from nothing. That takes guts. Or stupidity. Courage. There's a difference. Lena laughed, short and shaky. You're using my own words against me. I pay attention. She stared at him for a long moment, and Adrian watched the disbelief slowly shift into something that looked like tentative hope. You're serious, she said. Completely. Even knowing what you know, especially knowing what I know. Lena shook her head, a small smile tugging at her lips. You're crazy. Probably. Adrian leaned back in his chair. But so are you, and it seems to be working out. They sat there as the half-empty coffee shop, the morning sun streaming through the windows, and something fundamental shifted between them. The guardedness in Lena's eyes didn't disappear. Adrian suspected it never would, but it eased, just enough to let him in. I should tell you something too, Adrian said, about my wife. Lena waited, and Adrian felt the weight of his own lie pressing down on him. If she could be honest, he could too. She didn't die. Not really. She faked her death and left. Moved to Spain. I only found out 2 weeks before we moved here. Lena's eyes widened. You've been telling people she's dead. Yeah, because it's easier than explaining that she abandoned us. Easier than watching people look at Maya with pity. Does Maya know? No. I don't know how to tell her, or if I should tell her. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. So we're both liars, both hiding from the truth. At least we're honest with each other. Is that enough? I don't know, Lena said quietly, but it's a start. They left the coffee shop together, and on the sidewalk, Lena caught his hand. The touch was brief, almost hesitant, but it sent electricity through Adrian's entire body. Thank you, she said, for not running. Thank you for telling me. She squeezed his hand once, then let go and walked to her car. Adrian watched her drive away, his hand still tingling from where she'd touched him. He pulled out his phone and looked at the private investigator's number, still saved in his contacts. Then he deleted it. Whatever Rebecca was doing in Barcelona, whoever she'd become, it didn't matter anymore. She'd made her choice. Now Adrian was making his. That afternoon, he picked Maya up from school and took her to the beach. They built sandcastles and collected shells and talked about nothing important. When the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Maya turned to him. Daddy, are you happy here? Adrian looked at his daughter, at the peace in her face, at the way Coral Bay had already started to feel like home. Yeah, baby, I am. Good. Maya leaned against his side. Me too. They sat there until the stars came out, and for the first time since he'd found out the truth about Rebecca, Adrian felt like maybe everything was going to be okay. Not perfect, not easy, but okay. His phone buzzed, a text from Lena. Dinner tomorrow? All four of us? Adrian smiled. Yeah, my place this time. You can cook? You're about to find out. This should be interesting. No faith in me? Let's just say I'm keeping the pizza place on speed dial. Adrian laughed and typed back, Ye of little faith, I'll prove you wrong. Looking forward to it. He pocketed his phone and looked out at the ocean, at the endless horizon, at the possibilities stretching out before him. Whatever came next, whatever complications and dangers and truths they had to face, he wouldn't be facing them alone. And that, Adrian thought, was worth everything. Adrian burned the chicken, not badly, just enough that he had to scrape off the blackened bits and pray Lena wouldn't notice. Maya stood on a step stool next to him, allegedly helping with the salad, but mostly eating cherry tomatoes. It smells weird, she said, popping another tomato in her mouth. It smells fine. It smells like when you forgot about the toast. That was one time. It was last week. Adrian pointed the spatula at her. You're supposed to be on my side. I am on your side. That's why I'm telling you it smells weird. The doorbell rang, saving Adrian from further critique. Maya jumped down and ran for the door, nearly tripping over her own feet in her excitement. Adrian heard Lena's voice, then Chloe's squeal, then both girls thundering up the stairs to Maya's room. Lena appeared in the kitchen doorway, holding a bottle of wine and trying not to laugh. Don't say it, Adrian warned. I didn't say anything. You're thinking it. I'm thinking a lot of things. She set the wine on the counter and peered into the pan. Did you fight with this chicken? It's called caramelization. It's called you need a timer. Lena grabbed a wooden spoon and started poking at the vegetables he'd been attempting to sauté. When did you add these? I don't know, 10 minutes ago? They're mush, Adrian. They're tender. They're baby food. She turned off the burner and looked at him with barely concealed amusement. You really can't cook, can you? I can cook. I made Maya breakfast this morning. Cereal doesn't count. Adrian threw his hands up. Fine. You win. I'm a disaster in the kitchen. Happy? Ecstatic. Lena pulled out her phone. I'm ordering pizza. I told you I'd prove you wrong. You did. You proved me spectacularly wrong. I thought you'd at least make it through the meal without setting off the smoke alarm. Adrian glanced at the ceiling where the smoke detector hung silent. I didn't set it off. Give it time. While Lena ordered pizza, Adrian salvaged what he could of the dinner and tried not to feel completely incompetent. This was supposed to be his chance to show her he had it together, that he could handle domestic life, that he was worth the risk she was taking by letting him in. Instead, he'd managed to prove he couldn't even cook chicken without adult supervision. Hey, Lena's hand on his arm pulled him out of his thoughts. It's fine. I wasn't expecting a gourmet meal. You were expecting something edible, though. The salad's good. Maya made the salad. Then Maya's very talented. Lena squeezed his arm once, then let go. Stop beating yourself up. The girls don't care what we eat. They're just happy to be together. Adrian looked at her, at the gentleness in her expression, and felt some of the tension leave his shoulders. I wanted tonight to be good. It is good. You're making it weird by overthinking. I don't overthink. Lena raised an eyebrow. Okay, I overthink everything. There we go. Honesty. She pulled down plates from the cabinet like she'd been in his kitchen 100 times before. Set the table. I'll handle the rest. They fell into an easy rhythm, working around each other in the small space. When the pizza arrived, they called the girls down, and the four of them crowded around Adrian's dining table that was really too small for this many people, but somehow felt exactly right. Maya and Chloe dominated the conversation again, talking over each other about a game they'd invented at recess and a boy in their class who ate glue. Adrian caught Lena's eye across the table, and she smiled, not her careful, guarded smile, but a real one that made her whole face light up. After dinner, the girls begged to watch a movie. Adrian and Lena set them up in the living room with blankets and popcorn, then retreated to the back porch with the wine Lena had brought. The night was cool, the sound of waves constant in the background. Adrian poured them each a glass and settled into one of the weathered chairs he'd found at a yard sale. Lena took the other chair, curling her legs underneath her. "This is nice," she said quietly. "The porch or the company?" "Both." She took a sip of wine. "I haven't done this in a long time. Just sat and relaxed with another adult who isn't trying to sell me something or fix me." "Am I not trying to fix you? Are you?" Adrian considered. "No, I don't think you need fixing." "That's a first." Lena stared out at the dark ocean. "My ex used to make lists. Things I needed to change. Ways I could be better." "Sounds like a real prize." "He thought he was helping, improving me." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "The funny thing is, I believed him for a while. Thought maybe if I just tried harder, did everything right, he'd be satisfied. But he never was. No, because it wasn't about me being better. It was about control." She turned to look at Adrian. "Do you know what finally made me leave?" "What?" "He started making lists for Chloe. She was 3 years old, and he had a notebook full of things she needed to work on. Her table manners, the way she colored outside the lines, how loud she laughed." Lena's hands tightened around her wine glass. "That's when I knew I couldn't stay. I could survive it, but I couldn't let him do that to her." Adrian felt anger rise in his chest, hot and fierce. "What's his name? Why?" "So I know who to punch if I ever meet him." Lena laughed, surprised. "You're not the punching type." "I could be, for you." The words hung between them, heavier than Adrian had intended. Lena looked at him with something unreadable in her eyes. "Marcus," she said finally. "Marcus Brennan. He owns a tech company in Seattle. Very rich, very connected, very good at making people disappear when they become inconvenient." "Is that what you were? Inconvenient?" "I was evidence of who he really was underneath the philanthropist image." Lena took another sip of wine. "He's careful. Never does anything that can be traced back to him. But I saw enough to know what he was capable of." Adrian wanted to ask more. What she'd seen, how she'd gotten away, whether she was really safe here, but something in Lena's expression told him she'd shared all she could for tonight. So instead, he reached across the space between their chairs and took her hand. "You're safe here," he said. "I won't let anything happen to you or Chloe." "You can't promise that." "Watch me." Lena's fingers tightened around his. "You really mean that?" "Yeah, I do." They sat like that for a long time, hands linked, listening to the ocean and the distant sound of the girls laughing at something in the movie. Adrian felt the weight of what he'd just promised, knew he was stepping into something bigger than he understood. But when he looked at Lena, at the way she held his hand like it was a lifeline, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. "Tell me about Rebecca," Lena said suddenly. The request caught Adrian off guard. "What do you want to know?" "Why she left." "If you know." Adrian leaned back in his chair, his hand still holding Lena's. "I don't know. Not really. The investigator gave me facts where she went, when she withdrew the money, that she's been living under her maiden name. But he couldn't tell me why." "Have you thought about asking her?" "Every day." "But you don't." "Because I'm afraid of the answer." Adrian stared up at the stars beginning to emerge in the darkening sky. What if she says we weren't enough? What if she looks me in the eye and tells me she never loved us, that leaving was easy? Then she's a liar. How do you know? Because I've seen you with Maya. I've seen how hard you try, how much you care. If Rebecca couldn't see that, couldn't appreciate it, the problem isn't with you. Adrian felt something crack open in his chest. You don't know what I was like back then. Maybe I was a terrible husband. Were you? I don't think so, but maybe I was blind to it. Lena shifted in her chair, angling herself toward him. You want to know what I think? Always. I think Rebecca made a choice, and it wasn't about you or Maya. It was about her. Whatever she was running from or running toward, it was her thing. And yeah, it sucks that you got caught in the fallout. But her leaving doesn't mean you failed. It just means she wasn't strong enough to stay. The words settled over Adrian like a balm. He'd spent 3 years blaming himself, wondering what he could have done differently, how he could have saved a marriage that was already gone before he knew it was dying. Hearing Lena say it wasn't his fault, it didn't erase the pain, but it made it bearable. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For seeing me. Really seeing me. Lena smiled, soft and sad. Right back at you. They finished the wine as the night grew darker, their conversation drifting to easier topics. Lena told him about a disastrous design project she'd taken on, about the client who wanted 17 revisions and still wasn't happy. Adrian talked about his plans for the workshop, about the jobs he was lining up, about Mrs. Pacheco's campaign to set him up with her granddaughter. She showed me pictures, Adrian said, laughing, very enthusiastically. And I told her I wasn't interested in being set up. Why not? Is the granddaughter hideous? No, she's perfectly nice. I'm just not looking. Lena studied him over the rim of her glass. Because of Maya? Because of you. The confession came out before Adrian could stop it. Lena went very still, her eyes locked on his. Adrian, I know we haven't talked about this, about what we're doing or where this is going, but I need you to know, I'm not looking anywhere else, that this, us, whatever it is, that's what I want. You don't even know what this is. Neither do you, but we could figure it out together. Lena set down her glass with shaking hands. You're making this very difficult. Making what difficult? Keeping my distance. Protecting you from my mess. I don't want your protection, Lena. I want you. The words hung in the air between them, raw and honest. Adrian watched Lena process them, saw the fear and longing warring in her expression. He half expected her to pull back, to retreat behind her walls. Instead, she stood up, crossed the small space between their chairs, and kissed him. It was tentative at first, uncertain, like she was waiting for him to push her away. But Adrian pulled her closer, his hand coming up to cup her face, and the kiss deepened. She tasted like wine and possibility, and when she finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. Okay, Lena whispered. Okay, what? Okay, let's figure it out. Together. Adrian smiled and kissed her again, slower this time, savoring it. When they broke apart, Lena stayed close, her forehead resting against his. I'm terrified, she admitted. Me too. But you're still here. I'm not going anywhere. A crash from inside the house made them both jump. They rushed to the living room to find Maya and Chloe standing amid the scattered remains of the popcorn bowl, both girls looking guilty. It was an accident, Maya said quickly. We were building a fort, Chloe added, and the bowl was in the way. Lena looked at Adrian, and he saw the laughter building in her eyes. She broke first, doubling over with it, and Adrian followed. The girls stared at them like they'd lost their minds, which only made it funnier. What's so funny? Maya asked. Nothing, Adrian managed, trying to catch his breath. Just clean up the popcorn, okay? The girls got to work while Adrian and Lena settled on the couch, sitting closer than they had before, their shoulders touching. The movie played on, forgotten, while the girls rebuilt their fort around them. This is good, Lena said softly, so only Adrian could hear. Yeah, it is. Later, after Lena and Chloe had gone home, after Adrian had tucked Maya into bed and cleaned up the remnants of their evening, he stood on the back porch again, replaying the kiss in his mind. His phone buzzed. Lena, I can't stop thinking about tonight. Adrian, good thoughts or panic thoughts? Lena, both. Adrian, want me to come over, talk you down? Lena, no, I need to sit with this, but thank you. Adrian, for what? Lena, for being patient, for not running, for being you. Adrian stared at the message, feeling something warm and terrifying expand in his chest. He typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on, sleep well, I'll see you tomorrow. Lena, coffee? Adrian, always. He went to bed that night feeling lighter than he had in years, but at 3 a.m, his phone rang, shattering the peace. Hello. His voice was rough with sleep. Is this Adrian Cole? A man's voice, unfamiliar. Yeah, who's this? My name is Detective Pierce. I'm calling from the Seattle Police Department. I'm trying to locate Alina Hart. Adrian was suddenly wide awake, his heart pounding. Why? I'm not at liberty to discuss the details. Do you know Ms. Hart? Maybe. What's this about? Sir, this is a very serious matter. A man named Marcus Brennan has filed a missing persons report. He claims Lena Hart, formerly known as Lena Brennan, abducted his daughter 3 years ago. The world tilted. Adrian gripped the phone tighter. That's not true. You know Ms. Hart's whereabouts? I'm not telling you anything until you tell me what this is really about. Mr. Cole, if you're harboring a fugitive, she's not a fugitive. She left an abusive relationship. That's not what Mr. Brennan says. He has documentation showing she's unstable, a danger to the child. Adrian's mind raced. Documentation. Of course Marcus would have documentation. Men like that always did. I don't know where she is, Adrian lied. Mr. Cole, I don't know where she is. We met once at a coffee shop, and I haven't seen her since. There was a long pause. If that changes, you need to call me. Mr. Brennan is very concerned about his daughter's safety. I'm sure he is. He's offering a substantial reward for information leading to their location. Good for him. The detective gave Adrian a number to call if he remembered anything useful, then hung up. Adrian sat in the dark, his hands shaking, trying to figure out what to do. Marcus knew. Maybe not exactly where Lena was, but he was close enough to be making calls to people in Coral Bay, which meant Lena's worst fear was coming true. Adrian grabbed his keys and drove to Lena's house. All the lights were off, but he knocked anyway, quietly, urgently. After a moment, the door opened a crack. Lena stood there in pajamas, her eyes widening when she saw his face. What happened? We need to talk, now. She let him in, closed the door, and led him to the kitchen. In the dim light from the stove, Adrian could see the fear already building in her expression. A detective called me, he said. From Seattle, looking for you. The color drained from Lena's face. What did you tell him? That I didn't know where you were. Did he believe you? I don't know, probably not. Adrian grabbed her hands. Lena, he said Marcus filed a missing persons report, that you abducted Chloe. That's a lie. I know that, but he has documentation, proof that you're unstable. Lena pulled away, pressing her hands to her face. This is it. This is what I was afraid of. He found me. Not yet. The detective was fishing. If Marcus knew for sure where you were, he wouldn't be making phone calls. It doesn't matter. He's close, too close. Lena started pacing. I have to run, tonight, before he gets here. Run where? I don't know. Somewhere else, somewhere far. Lena, stop. Adrian caught her arm, made her look at him. Running isn't going to solve this. He'll just keep finding you. Then what am I supposed to do? Fight back. With what? He has lawyers, money, connections. I have nothing. You have the truth. Lena laughed, bitter and broken. The truth doesn't matter, not against someone like Marcus. Then we make it matter. Adrian's mind was working fast, putting pieces together. You said he's careful, never does anything that can be traced back to him. But if you saw things, if you have evidence, I don't have evidence. I have memories. That won't hold up in court. What about the friend who helped you disappear? Would they testify? I can't ask them to do that. Marcus would destroy them. Adrian wanted to argue, to find a solution, but Lena's face had already closed off. She was shutting down, retreating into survival mode. I need you to leave, she said quietly. What? I need you to go, now, before Marcus connects you to me. Lena, please, Adrian. If he finds out about you and Maya, he'll use you against me. I can't let that happen. I'm not leaving you alone to deal with this. You don't have a choice. Her voice was steady now, detached. This is my fight. I should never have dragged you into it. You didn't drag me anywhere. I chose this. Then I'm unchoosing it for you. Lena walked to the front door and opened it. Go home. Be with Maya. Forget about me. Adrian stared at her, at the wall she'd thrown up between them, and felt rage and helplessness war in his chest. You're pushing me away. I'm protecting you. I don't need protection. Yes, you do. You just don't see it yet. Adrian wanted to argue, to shake her, to make her understand that running away from this, from him, wasn't going to save either of them. But he saw the determination in her eyes, the way she'd already decided. Fine, he said, walking to the door. I'll go, but this isn't over. Yes, it is. No, Lena, it's not. I meant what I said tonight. I'm not going anywhere. He left before she could respond, driving home through the dark streets with his heart hammering against his ribs. When he got back to the yellow house, he sat in his car for a long time, trying to think. Marcus was looking for Lena. Had been looking for 3 years and was finally getting close. The detective's call meant he was desperate, throwing money at the problem, using every resource he had. And Lena was right. Men like that, with that kind of power, they usually won. But usually wasn't always. Adrian pulled out his phone and opened his browser. He typed in Marcus Brennan's name and started reading. Philanthropist, tech mogul, married once, divorced, 1 daughter, public image squeaky clean. Adrian dug deeper, clicking through old news articles, social media posts, business filings. And there, buried in a local Seattle news story from 4 years ago, was a mention of domestic disturbance call at Marcus Brennan's address. No charges filed. Incident classified as a misunderstanding. Adrian kept searching, kept digging, following threads that went nowhere and threads that led to more threads. By the time the sun started to rise, he had a list of names, employees who'd quit Marcus's company. Suddenly, neighbors who'd moved away without notice, a journalist who'd started investigating Marcus and then dropped the story without explanation. It wasn't much, but it was a start. At 7:30, Adrian texted Lena. "I know you told me to walk away. I can't. We'll talk later." She didn't respond. Adrian didn't see Lena for 3 days. She didn't answer his texts, didn't come to the coffee shop, didn't bring Chloe to the beach. When he walked past her house, the curtains were always drawn, the car in the driveway like she was home, but hiding. Maya noticed immediately. "Why haven't we seen Chloe?" she asked on the 3rd morning, pushing her cereal around the bowl without eating. "They're busy, sweetheart." "Busy with what?" Adrian didn't have a good answer. "I don't know. Lena has work. Chloe probably has school stuff. Can I call her?" "Maybe later." Maya's face fell and Adrian felt like the worst father in the world. His daughter had finally found a friend, had finally started to come out of the shell she'd built around herself after Rebecca left. And now he was taking that away because he'd gotten himself tangled up in something he didn't fully understand. After dropping Maya at school, Adrian drove to Lena's house and knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again, harder. "Lena, I know you're in there. We need to talk." Nothing. "I'm not leaving until you open the door." More silence. Adrian was about to knock a 3rd time when the door swung open. Lena stood there in sweatpants and an oversized shirt, her hair pulled back, dark circles under her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. "What part of stay away was unclear?" she said. "All of it." Adrian pushed past her into the house. "You can't just shut me out like this." "Yes, I can. Watch me." "Lena." "No, Adrian, you don't get to do this. You don't get to barge into my life and decide you're going to save me. I've been handling Marcus for 3 years. I don't need you." The words stung, but Adrian could see through them. He could see the fear beneath the anger, the exhaustion in every line of her body. "Where's Chloe?" he asked. "At a friend's house. I didn't want her here if—" Lena's voice broke. "I didn't want her here if something happened. Nothing's going to happen. You don't know that." "You're right. I don't." Adrian moved closer, and Lena took a step back. "But I know that hiding in here, avoiding everyone, that's not going to make this go away. It's the only thing I know how to do." "Then learn something new." He pulled out his phone, opened the Notes app where he'd been compiling everything he'd found. "I've been researching Marcus, the journalist who dropped the story about him. Her name is Sarah Chen. She lives in Portland now. I called her." Lena's eyes widened. "You what?" "I called her, told her I knew someone who'd been hurt by Marcus Brennan, and I needed to know what she knew." "Adrian, that's dangerous." "She told me she dropped the story because Marcus threatened her family, said he'd ruin her career, destroy everyone she cared about. But she kept her notes, all of them. Interviews with former employees, documentation of suspicious activity, everything. Why would she keep them if she was too scared to publish?" "Because she was waiting. For someone brave enough to go public. For someone who had first-hand experience and could back up what she'd found." Adrian looked Lena in the eyes. "For someone like you." Lena shook her head, backing away. "No, absolutely not. I'm not going after Marcus. That's suicide. It's the only way to stop him." "I don't care about stopping him. I care about keeping Chloe safe." "And how long do you think you can keep running? How many times are you going to uproot her life, change your name, disappear?" Adrian's voice rose despite himself. He's not going to stop, Lena. You said it yourself. He's obsessed with control. As long as you're out there somewhere defying him, he won't rest. So what? I should just hand myself over? Let him take Chloe? No, you should fight back, really fight back. Stop hiding and start exposing him for what he is. Lena laughed, bitter and sharp. You think it's that simple? Go to the police, tell my story, and suddenly justice prevails? That's not how the world works, especially not for men like Marcus. So we make it work. Adrian grabbed her shoulders, made her look at him. Sarah has evidence. You have your testimony. We find other people he's hurt, and we build a case so airtight that his money and connections don't matter. There is no we, Adrian. This isn't your fight. Yes, it is. Because I care about you, because Maya cares about Chloe. Because letting Marcus win means letting him hurt more people down the line. He softened his grip, his voice dropping. Because you deserve better than spending the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. Tears welled in Lena's eyes, and she angrily brushed them away. I can't do this. I'm not strong enough. Yes, you are. You got away from him once. You built an entire new life. That takes more strength than most people have. That was different. I was just trying to survive. And now you're trying to live. There's a difference. The words hung between them, and Adrian watched something shift in Lena's expression. The fear was still there, but underneath it, he saw a flicker of something else. Something that looked like hope. Even if I wanted to do this, she said slowly, I don't know where to start. We start with Sarah. She wants to meet you tomorrow, if you're willing. Where? Portland. It's a few hours' drive, but she said she'd come to us if that's easier. Lena was quiet for a long moment, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. If I do this, if I go after Marcus, he's going to come after everyone I care about, including you. Let him try. I'm serious, Adrian. He'll dig into your life. He'll find out about Rebecca, about Maya, about every mistake you've ever made. He'll twist it all and use it against you. Then he'll find out I'm a guy who can't cook chicken and told everyone his wife was dead when she's actually drinking mojitos in Spain. Not exactly blackmail material. This isn't a joke. I know it's not. Adrian's voice turned serious. But I also know that if we don't do something, he wins. And I'm tired of watching people like him win. Lena studied his face, searching for something. Whatever she found there must have been enough because she nodded slowly. Okay. I'll meet with Sarah, but if this goes south, if Marcus finds out and comes for us, you have to promise me you'll take Maya and run. You'll get her somewhere safe. I promise. Adrian pulled her into a hug, and after a moment she let herself lean against him. We're going to figure this out. You keep saying that. Because it's true. They stood like that for a while, holding each other in the quiet house, and Adrian felt the weight of what they were about to do settle over both of them. This wasn't going to be easy. It probably wasn't going to be clean, but it was necessary. The next day they drove to Portland together, leaving both girls with Mrs. Pacheco, who asked no questions but gave Adrian a look that said she knew something serious was happening. Sarah Chen met them at a coffee shop in a neighborhood Adrian didn't know, looking every bit the investigative journalist. Sharp eyes, efficient movements, a laptop bag that probably contained more information than the FBI. Lena, Sarah said, shaking her hand, thank you for coming. I know this can't be easy. You could say that. Lena sat down, her hands clasped tight in her lap. Adrian sat beside her, close enough that their knees touched under the table. Sarah didn't waste time. She pulled out a thick folder and laid it on the table. This is everything I have on Marcus Brennan. 3 years of investigation before he shut me down. Interviews with 12 former employees who reported workplace harassment, threats, and retaliation. Financial records showing suspicious transactions. Testimony from neighbors who heard arguments from his house. And this. She pulled out a photograph. It showed Marcus at a charity gala, smiling for the camera, his arm around a woman who wasn't Lena. Who's that? Adrian asked. Veronica Harding. She worked for Marcus's company as a marketing director. 6 months before Lena disappeared, Veronica filed a restraining order against Marcus. It was sealed, but I got a copy through a source. Sarah slid another document across the table. She claimed he stalked her, made threats against her family when she tried to quit, and sabotaged her career when she went public. Lena's face had gone pale. I didn't know about her. Marcus is very good at compartmentalizing his victims, keeping them separate so they can't compare notes. Sarah looked at Lena with something like sympathy. But I found 4 other women who've had similar experiences. None of them were willing to go on the record because they were too afraid. But if you're willing to testify, to tell your story, it might give them the courage to come forward. What about Chloe? Lena's voice was barely above a whisper. If I testify, he'll use her against me. He'll say I'm an unfit mother, that I kidnapped her. He's already saying that. Sarah pulled up something on her laptop and turned it around. It was a missing persons flyer with Chloe's picture and Lena's old photo. He's been circulating these in Washington and Oregon for the past month. Someone must have tipped him off that you were in this area. Lena looked like she might be sick. Adrian took her hand under the table and squeezed. The good news, Sarah continued, is that I've been in touch with a family law attorney who specializes in cases like this. Her name is Patricia Morales. She's based in Seattle, and she's willing to take your case pro bono if you decide to pursue custody formally. I already have custody. Chloe's my daughter. Legally, you and Marcus share custody. You left with Chloe without his permission, which he's framing as parental kidnapping. But Patricia believes we can prove you had legitimate fears for your safety and Chloe's well-being, especially if we can document Marcus's pattern of abuse and control. How long would that take? Months, maybe longer. Marcus will fight every step of the way. Sarah's expression was serious. I won't lie to you, Lena. This is going to be brutal. He'll drag you through the mud, make you relive every terrible moment, try to paint you as unstable or vindictive. But if we win, if we expose him, you'll finally be free. Lena looked at Adrian, her eyes desperate. He could see her calculating the risks, weighing the cost of fighting against the cost of running again. What do you think? She asked him. I think you already know what you need to do. That's not helpful. Okay. Then I think Marcus has controlled your life for too long. I think you deserve to stop running, and I think Chloe deserves to grow up knowing her mother didn't give up. Lena turned back to Sarah. If I do this, what's the first step? You file for formal custody in Washington State. That puts everything on the record, makes it public. Then we start building the case, your testimony, the other women's testimony if they'll come forward, all the documentation I've gathered. Patricia will handle the legal side, and I'll handle the media side. Media? This story needs to be told, Lena, not just in a courtroom, but publicly. So other women in your situation know they're not alone. So men like Marcus understand they can't hide behind money and power forever. He'll come after all of us. You, Patricia, everyone involved. Sarah smiled grimly. Let him try. I've been waiting 3 years for this. I'm not backing down now. They spent the next 2 hours going over details, signing documents, planning strategy. By the time they left the coffee shop, Adrian's head was spinning with information, and his stomach was churning with anxiety. But Lena looked different. Still scared, but something had straightened in her spine. She looked like someone ready to fight. On the drive back to Coral Bay, she was quiet for a long time. Adrian didn't push, just drove and waited for her to process. I never thought I'd do this, she said finally. Go back. Face him. You don't have to. We can turn around right now. No, I do have to. For Chloe. She looked out the window at the passing landscape. I've been so focused on keeping her physically safe that I forgot she needs to see me be strong. She needs to know that when someone hurts you, you don't just run, you stand up. That's not an easy lesson to teach. None of them are. Lena glanced at him. Thank you for pushing me. I would have kept running forever if you hadn't. You would have figured it out eventually. I don't know, maybe. She reached across the console and took his hand. But I'm glad I didn't have to do it alone. They picked up the girls from Mrs. Pacheco's house, and Maya immediately launched into a story about the cookies they'd made and the garden they'd planted. Chloe chimed in with her own version, and the two of them talked over each other all the way back to Lena's house. At the door, Chloe hugged Maya goodbye and then surprised Adrian by hugging him too. Thanks for bringing Maya over, she said, her small arms tight around his waist. Anytime, kiddo. Inside, Lena closed the door and leaned against it, suddenly exhausted. Adrian could see the weight of the day catching up with her. You okay? He asked. I don't know. Ask me in 6 months when this is all over. You need anything? Sleep. About 100 years of sleep. Adrian smiled. I'll let you get to it. He started to leave, but Lena caught his arm. Adrian, stay. Just for a while. He stayed. They put on a movie for Chloe and sat on the couch, not really watching, just being there together. Lena's head ended up on Adrian's shoulder, and his arm ended up around her waist. And when Chloe finally passed out halfway through the movie, neither of them moved. I'm terrified, Lena whispered. I know, but I'm doing it anyway. I know that too. She tilted her head up to look at him. What if we lose? What if Marcus takes Chloe? Then we appeal. We keep fighting. We don't stop until we win. You make it sound simple. It's not simple, but it's worth it. Lena kissed him then, soft and grateful and a little desperate. When they broke apart, she pressed her forehead against his. I don't know what I did to deserve you, she said. You didn't have to do anything. You just had to let me in. They stayed like that until Adrian's phone buzzed with a text from Maya asking when he was coming home. He carefully extracted himself from Lena's arms, carried sleeping Chloe upstairs to her bed, and then kissed Lena goodbye at the door. I'll call Patricia tomorrow, Lena said. Start the custody filing. Want me to come with you? No, I need to do this part myself. She squeezed his hand. But thank you for offering. Adrian drove home through the dark streets, his mind already racing ahead to what came next. Filing for custody would put Lena on Marcus's radar officially. He'd know exactly where she was, and he'd come for her with everything he had. They needed to be ready. At home, Maya was already in her pajamas, watching TV with Mrs. Pacheco, who'd apparently decided to stay until Adrian returned. Everything okay? The older woman asked, gathering her things. Getting there. That Lena's a good woman. Reminds me of my daughter. Strong, but doesn't always know it. Adrian walked Mrs. Pacheco to her door and thanked her for watching Maya. Back inside, he found his daughter half asleep on the couch. Bedtime, he said, scooping her up. Is Lena okay? Maya asked, her voice drowsy. She will be. You like her a lot. Yeah, I do. Good. She likes you too. I can tell. Adrian smiled and carried his daughter upstairs, tucked her in, and sat with her until she fell asleep. Then he went to his own room and stared at the ceiling, trying not to think about all the ways this could go wrong. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mr. Cole, this is Detective Pierce again. I've been informed that you've been in contact with Lena Hart. I strongly suggest you cooperate with our investigation before you find yourself facing legal consequences. Adrian stared at the message, anger rising in his chest. Marcus was already making moves, already applying pressure. He deleted the text without responding and blocked the number. Another text came through, this time from Sarah Chen. FYI, Marcus's lawyers just filed a motion to expedite the custody hearing. He's pushing hard. We need to be ready. Adrian forwarded the message to Lena, then texted back. How soon? Sarah. 2 weeks. Maybe less. 2 weeks to build a case strong enough to stand against one of the most powerful men in Seattle. 2 weeks to find witnesses, gather evidence, and prepare Lena to face the man who'd controlled her for years. Adrian got out of bed and went to his desk, pulling out a notebook. He started making lists, people to contact, documents to gather, questions to ask. He worked until 3 in the morning, and when he finally fell asleep at his desk, he dreamed of courtrooms and cameras and Lena standing tall in the face of everything trying to break her. The next morning, Lena called Patricia Morales and officially filed for custody. The motion was entered into the system at 10 o'clock, and by noon, Marcus's response was already filed. He was demanding immediate return of the child, claiming Lena was mentally unstable and had violated their custody agreement. He's fast, Patricia told Lena over speakerphone. Adrian was there, sitting at Lena's kitchen table, watching her face go through a dozen different emotions. But we expected that. The hearing is set for 2 weeks from today in Seattle. We'll need you there, and we'll need to prepare you for cross-examination. What do I need to do? Lena's voice was steady, but Adrian could see her hands shaking. Tell the truth. All of it. The judge needs to understand why you left, what you were afraid of, and why returning Chloe to Marcus would be harmful. Can you do that? Yes? Good. I'll send over a list of questions to practice with. Adrian, are you willing to testify as a character witness? Absolutely. Then we'll need your statement too. Anyone else who can speak to Lena's character, her parenting, her mental state. We need them on our side. They spent the next hour going over strategy. When they finally hung up, Lena looked drained. 2 weeks, she said, staring at nothing. We'll be ready. Will we? Adrian took her hands. Yeah, we will. But that night, as Adrian lay in bed trying to sleep, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something. Marcus was too calm, too confident. Men like him didn't just file custody motions and wait for a judge to decide. They had backup plans, leverage, ways to ensure they won no matter what. Adrian's phone lit up with another text, this time from a number he did recognize, the private investigator he'd hired to find Rebecca. Mr. Cole, I thought you should know. Someone's been asking questions about you. Professional, well-funded. They're digging into your background, your wife's disappearance, everything. Thought you'd want a heads up. Adrian's blood ran cold. Marcus was already coming for him, trying to find dirt to use against Lena. And if he dug deep enough, he'd find Rebecca. He'd find the lie Adrian had been telling for 3 years. He'd use it to paint Adrian as dishonest, unreliable, a man who couldn't be trusted. He texted back. How much do they know? Not sure yet. But whoever's asking has resources. Be careful. Adrian set down his phone and pressed his palms against his eyes. This was it. The moment he'd been dreading. The past he'd been running from was about to collide with the present he'd been trying to build. He had 2 choices. Come clean about Rebecca before Marcus could use it against him, or hope the investigator didn't find anything and pray the truth stayed buried. Neither option felt good. But keeping secrets from Lena now, after everything, that felt worse. Adrian grabbed his phone and texted Lena, "Can you come over tomorrow? I need to tell you something." The response came immediately. Is everything okay? No, but it will be. I just need to be honest with you about something. 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times. Finally, I'll be there at 9. Adrian put the phone down and tried to sleep, but his mind wouldn't shut off. Tomorrow, he'd tell Lena everything. About Rebecca, about the lie, about the investigation Marcus had launched into his life. And then he'd hope like hell she didn't walk away. Because losing her now, after everything, might just break him completely. Lena arrived at 9 sharp, and Adrian could tell from the tension in her shoulders that she'd spent the whole night worrying. He poured them both coffee, and they sat at his kitchen table, the morning light streaming through the window, making everything feel too bright, too exposed. So what is it? Lena asked, her hands wrapped around the mug like she needed the warmth. Adrian took a breath. Marcus has someone investigating me, digging into my past. I figured he would. That's his style. Yeah, well, they're gonna find something. Something I haven't been completely honest about. He met her eyes. Rebecca didn't die in an accident. She's alive. Living in Spain. She faked her death and left us. Lena went very still. What? I found out 2 weeks before we moved here. A private investigator tracked her down. She withdrew 50 grand from our joint account, bought a one-way ticket, and started over under her maiden name. Adrian's voice was flat, emotionless. I've been telling everyone she's dead because it was easier than explaining that she abandoned her daughter. Does Maya know? No. And I don't know how to tell her. Lena set down her coffee, her expression unreadable. So you lied to everyone, to me. Yes. Why? Because I was ashamed. Because admitting that my wife chose to leave made me feel like I'd failed. Like I wasn't enough to make her stay. Adrian's hands clenched into fists. And because telling Maya the truth felt like destroying the one good memory she has left of her mother. That's not your decision to make, Adrian. Maya deserves to know the truth. I know that. I've known it since the beginning. I just didn't know how to... He stopped, the words catching in his throat. When Marcus's investigator finds Rebecca, he's going to use it against me. He's going to paint me as a liar, someone who can't be trusted, and that's going to hurt your case. Lena was quiet for a long moment, and Adrian watched her process what he told her. He half expected her to stand up and leave, to tell him he was exactly like Marcus, controlling the narrative, hiding the truth to protect himself. But when she finally spoke, her voice was softer than he expected. I'm not going to pretend that doesn't hurt. Finding out you lied. I know. But I also understand why you did it. You were protecting Maya and yourself. She reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. The difference between you and Marcus is that you feel guilty about the lie. You want to make it right. He never would. That doesn't make it okay. No, it doesn't, but it makes it human. Lena squeezed his hand. You need to tell Maya the truth before Marcus can use it against us. What if it breaks her? What if keeping it secret breaks her worse? Adrian closed his eyes, feeling the weight of 3 years of lies pressing down on him. Lena was right. He'd known she was right all along. He'd just been too much of a coward to face it. Will you help me? He asked quietly. Tell Maya? Yeah. I don't know how to do this without screwing it up. Lena stood up, walked around the table, and pulled Adrian into a hug. He let himself lean into her, drawing strength from the way she held him. We'll figure it out, she said. Together. That afternoon, after Adrian picked Maya up from school, he asked her to sit with him on the back porch. Lena was there too, having brought Chloe over so the girls could play while the adults talked. Maya sensed something was wrong immediately. Am I in trouble? She asked, her eyes wide. No, baby, you're not in trouble. Adrian pulled her into his lap, even though she was getting too big for it. I need to tell you something important. Something I should have told you a long time ago. Maya's face went serious. What? Adrian took a breath, feeling Lena's hand on his shoulder, steadying him. It's about Mom, about what happened to her. She died. In the car accident. No, sweetheart, she didn't. The words felt like they were being torn out of him. Mom's alive. She left us. Moved to another country. I only found out a few weeks ago. Maya stared at him, her expression confused. I don't understand. Mom made a choice to leave. She wasn't happy, and instead of trying to work things out, she ran away. She wanted us to think she'd died so we wouldn't look for her. The confusion in Maya's face slowly shifted to something else. Hurt, betrayal, anger. She left me? Yes. Why? I don't know, baby. I wish I did. Tears welled in Maya's eyes. Did I do something wrong? No. Adrian pulled her closer, his own eyes burning. This has nothing to do with you. Mom made her own choices, and they were bad choices. But none of it was your fault. Then why did she go? Because sometimes people are broken in ways we can't fix, and instead of asking for help, they run. Maya was crying now, big gulping sobs that shook her small body. Adrian held her and let her cry, feeling like the worst father in the world for causing this pain, for waiting so long to tell the truth. Lena knelt down beside them, her hand rubbing Maya's back. It's okay to be angry, Lena said softly. It's okay to be sad. What your mom did wasn't fair to you. Maya looked at her through tears. Did your husband leave you too? In a way. He hurt me, and I had to leave him to keep Chloe safe. Do you miss him? No. Because I learned that missing someone who hurt you is just hurting yourself twice. Maya absorbed this, her tears slowing. I don't think I miss Mom anymore. I just miss having a mom. The words cracked something open in Adrian's chest. He looked at Lena, saw his own pain reflected in her eyes. You have people who love you, Adrian said. Me, Mrs. Pacheco, Chloe, Lena. We're your family now. But it's not the same. No, it's not. But maybe it can be good anyway. Maya nodded slowly, then wiggled out of Adrian's lap and walked inside without another word. Adrian started to follow, but Lena stopped him. Let her process. She needs time. What if I just made everything worse? You didn't. You told her the truth. That's what good parents do, even when it's hard. Adrian leaned against the porch railing, feeling exhausted. Marcus is going to have a field day with this. Let him. At least now he can't blindside us with it. Lena stood beside him. We control the narrative now. The custody hearing was set for the following Monday in Seattle. Patricia spent the weekend prepping Lena, running through questions, preparing her for the attacks Marcus's lawyers would throw at her. Adrian sat in on some of the sessions, watching Lena transform from the guarded woman he'd met on the beach into someone harder, more focused. They're going to ask about your mental health, Patricia said, her tone matter of fact. Marcus's lawyers will try to paint you as unstable, erratic. They'll bring up the name change, the disappearing, everything. And what do I say? The truth. That you were escaping an abusive relationship. That changing your name was necessary for your safety and Chloe's safety. That everything you did was to protect your daughter. What about Adrian? Patricia glanced at him. They'll try to use him too, paint your relationship as reckless, as proof that you're not focused on Chloe's well-being. That's ridiculous. That's how Marcus operates. He'll twist everything. Patricia turned to Adrian. Are you prepared to testify, to have your personal life picked apart? Yes. Even the part about your wife? Especially that part. Sunday night, the night before the hearing, Adrian couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through everything that could go wrong. Marcus could bring witnesses who'd paint Lena as unstable. He could produce forged documents. He could charm the judge with his philanthropist image while destroying Lena's credibility piece by piece. His phone buzzed. A text from Lena. You awake? Yeah, me too. Too nervous to sleep. Want me to come over? No, I need to be alone with my thoughts. But thank you. Adrian stared at the message, wishing he could do more, wishing he could take this burden from her. Another text came through. Adrian? Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know you changed everything for me. Before you, I was just surviving. You made me want to actually live. He typed back, same. You and Chloe, you're the best thing that's happened to me and Maya. Don't get sappy on me. I'm trying to stay tough. Too late. Already sappy. Impossible, man. You love it. A long pause, then, yeah, I do. Adrian fell asleep with his phone in his hand, those 3 words playing on repeat in his mind. The courthouse in Seattle was everything Adrian expected. Cold marble, echoing halls, the weight of justice hanging heavy in the air. Lena looked smaller somehow, dressed in a conservative navy suit Patricia had insisted she wear. Maya and Chloe were with Mrs. Pacheco back in Coral Bay, kept far away from the ugliness about to unfold. Marcus was already there when they arrived, surrounded by 3 lawyers in expensive suits. He looked exactly like his photos. Tall, handsome, silver hair at the temples. The kind of confidence that came from never being told no. His eyes locked on Lena the moment she walked in, and Adrian saw her falter. He took her hand. Don't look at him. Look at me. Lena tore her gaze away from Marcus, focused on Adrian's face. He looked so normal. Monsters usually do. They took their seats on one side of the courtroom while Marcus and his legal team took the other. The judge, a woman in her 60s named Harrison, entered and everyone stood. When they sat again, Adrian felt like he couldn't breathe. Patricia started strong, laying out the timeline of Lena's relationship with Marcus. The control, the isolation, the way he'd systematically stripped away her independence. She called Lena to the stand first. Ms. Hart, can you tell the court why you left your husband 3 years ago? Lena's voice was steady. Because I was afraid. Afraid of what he'd do to me and what he'd teach our daughter about how men treat women. Can you elaborate on that fear? Marcus controlled everything. Where I went, who I talked to, how I spent money. He monitored my phone, my emails, my friendships. When I tried to leave the first time, he threatened to take Chloe and make sure I never saw her again. He said he had lawyers, connections, that no judge would believe me over him. So you ran. I protected my daughter. There's a difference. Marcus's lead attorney, a sharp-faced man named Kellerman, stood for cross-examination. Monsieur Hart, you claim you were afraid, yet you never filed a police report, never sought a restraining order, never documented any of this alleged abuse. Why? Because Marcus taught me that the system wouldn't help me, that his money and power meant he'd always win. Or perhaps because there was no abuse. Perhaps you simply wanted to escape your responsibilities as a wife and mother. Patricia objected, but the seed was planted. Kellerman continued, picking apart Lena's story, questioning every decision she'd made. Why didn't she seek help? Why did she change her name? Why did she keep Chloe from her father for 3 years? Adrian watched Lena hold her ground, watched her refuse to break under Kellerman's attacks. But he also saw the toll it was taking, the way her hands shook when she gripped the witness stand. When it was Adrian's turn to testify, Kellerman went for the throat immediately. Mr. Cole, you told people your wife was dead, correct? Yes?
But she's alive. Yes? So you lied. I did. And you expect this court to trust your testimony about Ms. Hart's character when you've spent 3 years lying about your own wife? Adrian looked at the judge. I lied because I was ashamed. My wife abandoned us, and I didn't want my daughter to grow up knowing her mother chose to leave. It was wrong, and I've told Maya the truth now. But that lie doesn't change what I know about Lena, that she's a good mother, a strong woman, and someone who did what she had to do to protect her child. Or someone who manipulated you into believing her story. No one manipulates me, Mr. Kellerman. I make my own decisions. The hearing stretched into the afternoon. Patricia called Sarah Chen, who presented her research on Marcus, the pattern of former employees with similar stories, the sealed restraining orders, the suspicious financial transactions. Marcus's lawyers tried to discredit her, but Sarah held firm. Then Marcus took the stand. He was good. Adrian had to give him that. He painted himself as a devoted father, a man who'd been searching for his daughter for 3 years, who only wanted to be reunited with his child. He admitted to being controlling during the marriage, but framed it as concern for his family's safety. He claimed Lena had mental health issues, that she'd been erratic and unstable. I never wanted to hurt her, Marcus said, his voice heavy with false sincerity. I loved her, I still do. I just want my daughter back. Adrian watched the judge's face, trying to read her reaction. She gave nothing away. When it was Patricia's turn to cross-examine, she went straight for the jugular. Mr. Brennan, you claim to love your daughter. Can you tell me her favorite color? Marcus blinked. Purple, I think. It's yellow. Her favorite food? Pizza? Strawberries. What's her teacher's name? I don't know. We've been separated for 3 years. Yet you expect this court to believe you're prepared to be a primary caregiver. Patricia pulled out a document. Mr. Brennan, is it true that you've only requested supervised visitation twice in the past 3 years? I didn't know where she was. You hired investigators. You filed a missing persons report, but you only requested supervised visits twice. Does that sound like a devoted father? Marcus's composure slipped. I was respecting the legal process. Or you were more interested in punishing your ex-wife than actually seeing your child. Kellerman objected, but the damage was done. Patricia presented more evidence, emails from Marcus to his staff mentioning Lena and Chloe with disturbing detachment, financial records showing he'd cut off Lena's access to their joint accounts the day after she left, testimony from Veronica Harding about Marcus's pattern of control and retaliation. By the time the judge called for a recess, Adrian felt like he'd been through a war. In the hallway outside the courtroom, Lena collapsed against the wall. I can't do this, she said. I can't keep reliving this. You're almost done. Just hang on a little longer. What if we lose? What if the judge gives him custody? Then we appeal. We keep fighting. I'm so tired of fighting. Adrian pulled her close, not caring who saw. I know, but you're the strongest person I've ever met. You can do this. When they reconvened, the judge looked at both parties with an expression Adrian couldn't read. I've heard testimony from both sides, Judge Harrison said, and I've reviewed all the evidence presented. This is a complex case with serious allegations on both sides. She paused. However, my primary concern is the well-being of the child. Chloe has been in her mother's care for 3 years, has built a life in Coral Bay, and by all accounts is thriving. Marcus leaned forward, his jaw tight. Mr. Brennan, while I don't doubt you love your daughter, I find the evidence of your controlling behavior during the marriage credible. Combined with your minimal efforts to establish a relationship with Chloe over the past 3 years, I'm not convinced that changing custody at this time is in her best interest. Marcus stood up. Your Honor, I'm not finished. The judge's voice was sharp. I'm granting Ms. Hart primary physical custody with the requirement that she participate in family counseling. Mr. Brennan, you'll have supervised visitation once a month, with the possibility of increased visitation if you complete anger management courses and family therapy. This is absurd. Mr. Brennan, I suggest you sit down before I hold you in contempt. Judge Harrison looked at Lena. Ms. Hart, I understand why you felt you needed to disappear, but going forward, I expect you to work within the legal system. Is that understood? Yes, Your Honor. Then this hearing is adjourned. The gavel came down, and for a moment Adrian couldn't process what had just happened,
Then he saw Lena's face, relief and disbelief and something like joy, all mixed together. Patricia was smiling, gathering her papers. Marcus was arguing with his lawyers, his face red with fury. Outside the courthouse, Lena broke down crying. Adrian held her while she sobbed, all the tension of the past weeks pouring out at once. "We won," she kept saying. "We actually won. You won. You did this. No, we did this. All of us." She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "I need to call Chloe. She needs to know it's over." Patricia joined them on the courthouse steps. "Marcus will probably appeal. Men like him don't give up easily." "Let him," Lena said, her voice stronger than Adrian had ever heard it. "I'm not running anymore." They drove back to Coral Bay that evening, exhausted but victorious. Mrs. Pacheco had both girls at Adrian's house, and the moment they walked in, Chloe ran to her mother. "Did we win?" she asked. "We won, baby. You get to stay with me." Chloe hugged her mother so tight Adrian thought she might break something. Maya stood off to the side watching, and Adrian could see the question in her eyes. Would her mother have fought for her like that? Would Rebecca have stood in a courtroom and battled to keep her? He knelt down beside Maya. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm happy for Chloe. But I wish Mom wanted to keep me." Adrian's heart broke. "Maya, listen to me. What your mom did, that's about her, not you. You are worth fighting for. You are worth everything." "Then why didn't she fight?" "Because she was broken in a way I couldn't fix. But I'm fighting for you, every single day, and I'm never going to stop." Maya threw her arms around his neck, and Adrian held his daughter and tried not to fall apart. Over her shoulder, he saw Lena watching them, her eyes full of understanding. That night, after the girls were asleep, Adrian and Lena sat on his back porch with glasses of wine, listening to the ocean. "Thank you," Lena said, "for everything. For believing me, for standing with me, for not running when things got hard." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do. Most people would have walked away." "I'm not most people," Lena smiled. "No, you're not." She set down her wine and turned to face him. "I love you, Adrian. I don't know when it happened or how, but I do. And I need you to know that." Adrian felt something expand in his chest, something that felt like hope and fear and possibility all at once. "I love you too. You and Chloe, you're the family I didn't know I was looking for. We're a mess, both of us. Broken and complicated and probably going to screw this up a dozen different ways. Probably, but we'll figure it out as we go." Lena laughed, leaning into him. "When did you get so optimistic?" "When I met you." They sat there until the stars came out, planning a future that felt impossibly fragile and impossibly strong at the same time. The next morning, Lena and Chloe officially moved into the yellow house down the street. Not into Adrian's house. They both agreed they needed to take things slow, to let the girls adjust, to build something sustainable, but close enough that they could have breakfast together, close enough that the girls could run back and forth, close enough that Adrian could fall asleep knowing Lena was safe. Sarah Chen published her story about Marcus 3 weeks later. It went viral. Within days, 4 more women came forward with their own experiences. Marcus's company lost major investors. His philanthropist image crumbled. He was forced to resign from his board positions and retreat from public life. The appeals process dragged on for months, but Marcus's lawyers were fighting a losing battle. The publicity had destroyed his credibility, and the additional testimony from other women made it impossible for him to claim Lena was an isolated case. Eventually, he gave up, settling for minimal supervised visitation and signing away any claim to decision-making authority in Chloe's life. By the time fall rolled around again, Coral Bay felt like home in a way Adrian's old life never had. Maya started second grade with Chloe by her side. Lena's design business took off after the publicity from the case. Adrian landed a major renovation project that would keep him busy for the next year. And on a Saturday morning in October, exactly 1 year after they'd first met on that beach, Adrian asked Lena to marry him. They were back at that same spot, the girls building sandcastles, while Adrian and Lena sat on the same piece of driftwood where they'd first talked. He didn't have a ring. They talked about that, about how traditional symbols didn't mean much when you'd already fought through hell together. Instead, he just asked, "Marry me." Lena looked at him, surprised. What? Marry me. Let's make this official. All four of us. A real family. Adrian, I know it's fast. I know we've both got baggage. But I also know I want to wake up next to you every morning. I want to help you raise Chloe. I want Maya to have a mother who chooses to stay. I want all of it. The messy, complicated, beautiful, all of it. Lena's eyes filled with tears. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Even though I'm still going to therapy twice a week, even though I still have nightmares about Marcus, even though I'm probably going to be a disaster at being a wife, especially because of all that, because you're real and honest and you fight for what matters. Lena wiped her eyes, laughing and crying at the same time. Okay. Yes, let's do it. Let's be a family. Adrian kissed her, right there on the beach, with the girls cheering in the background and the ocean crashing behind them. It wasn't a perfect moment. The sand was in his eyes and Maya was yelling something about needing more water for the moat. But it was real. They got married 2 months later in a small ceremony on that same beach, with just Mrs. Pacheco and Patricia and Sarah as witnesses. Maya and Chloe were flower girls, both of them in yellow dresses they'd picked out together. Lena wore white, but not a traditional gown. A simple dress that moved in the wind, her hair down, no makeup except what made her feel good. During the vows, Adrian looked at his daughter and saw something he hadn't seen in 3 years. Genuine happiness. Not the kind that came from pretending, but the kind that came from feeling safe and loved and chosen. That night, after the girls were asleep in their shared room, they'd insisted on bunk beds in the biggest bedroom of Adrian's house, which was now everyone's house. Adrian and Lena sat on the back porch with wine and wedding cake. We did it, Lena said, holding up her ring. A simple band they'd found at a local jeweler. Nothing fancy, but exactly right. We did. Think we can actually make this work? I don't know, but I think we can try really hard and be honest when things get tough, and probably still screw up sometimes. That's romantic. That's realistic. Lena laughed and leaned her head on his shoulder. I never thought I'd get this. A second chance. A real family. Me neither. What do you think Maya will tell her therapist about all this? Probably that her dad has terrible taste in cooking and married a woman who's way too good for him. She'd be right on both counts. Adrian smiled and kissed the top of Lena's head. In the house behind them, he could hear the faint sound of Maya and Chloe giggling about something. The ocean rolled steady and constant. Somewhere far away, Rebecca was living whatever life she'd chosen, and Marcus was nursing his wounded pride and shattered reputation. But here, in this moment, Adrian had everything that mattered. A daughter who was learning to trust again. A wife who'd fought her way to freedom. A stepdaughter who called him dad without hesitation. A life built not on lies or control or fear, but on the simple radical act of choosing each other every day. It wasn't perfect. It would never be perfect. They'd have hard days and fights and moments of doubt, but they'd also have this solid foundation of truth and survival and love that had been forged in the fire and came out stronger for it. Hey, Lena said, lifting her head to look at him. What are you thinking about? How lucky I am. How lucky we all are. Even with all the mess? Especially because of the mess. It means we're real. It means we're trying. Lena kissed him, slow and sweet, and when they broke apart, she was smiling. I like trying with you. Good. Because you're stuck with me now. Promise? Promise. They sat there until the moon rose over the ocean, two broken people who'd found each other and decided that broken didn't mean beyond repair, that scars were proof of survival, that the best families weren't the ones that looked perfect from the outside, but the ones that fought to stay together from the inside. And somewhere in the house, two little girls slept peacefully, dreaming of a future where love didn't hurt, and parents didn't leave, and home was a place that felt safe. That was the real victory. Not the custody hearing or the published article or the ring on Lena's finger. It was the knowledge that they'd all survived the worst and were still standing, still fighting, still choosing each other, still building something worth keeping.